Thank you for joining us today for this MEDICA Deep Dive. Our focus is on a theme that is truly transformative. It's at the cutting edge of medical science. No pun intended. It's robotics in the operating theater. Imagine a world where surgical precision reaches unimaginable accuracy, reducing patient recovery time, increasing the rate of successful outcomes, and possibly even allowing entirely new procedures before thought impossible. This is the reality that we are building with robotics. We're talking today about robotic and information systems that can assist in microsurgeries, a future where AI algorithms can predict patient responses in real time, and remote controlled surgical systems that allow top surgeons to operate from really anywhere in the world. We are joined by three experts in this field with a focus on both the development of this technology and its implementation. Mr. Julian Klodmann is at the forefront of the creation of new technologies at the MIRO Lab at the German Aerospace Research Center, or in German acronyms, DLR. Professor Dr. Dirk Wilhelm is a clinical director and a leading robotic surgery expert, and with experience utilizing these systems to enhance care in the operating theater in the OR. And finally, Dr. Andreas Keibel, who represents the medical division of KUKA, a global leader in the field of robotics and based in Germany, as most people familiar with the field is aware. Just to let you know in advance, if any of the speaking partners here have problems with the connection, we will carry on. They can come back into the chat at any time, including myself, just in case we do have technical difficulties. Second of all, there is a Q&A function within this Zoom chat. It's not visible to other participants. It goes straight to our editorial team, and they will filter through the questions that come in, and I will get in my text field here in my other screen these questions, and we will put them to the panel as they come in possibly, or save them till the Q&A at the end of the discussion. So let's, without further ado, just jump right into it. Julian Klodmann, please give an introduction a little more in-depth than I just did here about yourself and your background and what you bring to the discussion.
All right, thanks for the nice introduction. So it's also a pleasure for me today to participate in this panel. So I'm representing the MIRO Innovation Lab as an instance of the Institute of Robotics and Mechatronics of the German Aerospace Center. And directly coming to that, the Institute of Robotics and Mechatronics is located near Munich in Oberpfaffenhofen, and mainly focusing on space robotics research, such as orbital robotics, planetary exploration, or space assistance. And all of them have their terrestrial application domain, like future manufacturing, field robotics, or healthcare robotics. And as I'm representing today here at the MIRO Innovation Lab, we are particularly focusing on surgical robotics in the healthcare domain. And started actually our developments already in the 90s, also together with Professor Beusner and the Klinikum Rechts der Isar, so in the proximity to Dirk, with the automated endoscope guidance using the ESOP arm, which was invented by computer motion, and it was just centering the laparoscopic instruments. And starting with that, so we thought, okay, maybe developing a new concept of generic medical robotics, and starting over with different projects such as the Kinemedic, which was a predecessor of the MIRO lightweight robot. We used the Kinemedic for taking biopsies or placing pedicle screws in neurosurgery, and also collaborated back then with KUKA and BrainLab already. And then coming up with the MIROSurge system, which you can see also in the video in the middle, in the top. And here we used 3 lightweight robotic arms, the MIRO arms, to carry one stereo endoscope to provide 3D vision, and 2 robots carrying wristed instruments such that the surgeon can ergonomically manipulate the tissue in 6 degrees of freedom. And this led to a validation project funded by the Helmholtz Association, which we also used to revise the system and find licensing partners, which finally came out was Covidien, which is nowadays Medtronic. And they basically licensed the MIRO search system a couple of years ago. Here in the lower picture, you can see the Hugo RAS system, which has since 2021 CE mark approval and also is filed as IDE at the FDA. And anyway, so still the MIRO search system remained DLR property and is available for research not only with academic and clinical partners, but also industrial partners. And because of our experience of successful collaboration also with industrial partners, we founded the MIRO Innovation Lab. And here we obviously are mostly interested in strategic development partnerships, where you can really start from the idea, the concept phase, feasibility studies, and finally going to the development. So here we can contribute probably most, but we could also support in acute development needs. So for example, analysis and optimization. What we did here was, for example, analyzing and optimizing a controller for a surgical microscope and developing also the control module for that. We have also different technologies in stock, not only in the surgical robotics team, but at the entire institute, which might be interesting to integrate into new surgical robotic systems. And furthermore, we have within our complementary interdisciplinary network valuable contexts to really create a dynamic research consortia. Finally, our research is focused on modular robotic assisted surgical systems, which could be efficiently used to do the transition from conventional towards full robot assisted surgery. And we want to develop them to be collaborative, so like the surgical assistant is nowadays, and provide also the adequate assistance just as the assistant is doing it nowadays to support the main physician. Obviously, the technological research areas are mechatronics and control, imaging, and artificial intelligence. And currently, we're working on laparoscopy, flexible endoscopy, and sonography. And we hope to also contribute with our research to general goals in surgical care, such as standardization, cost reduction by means of modularity, counteract the shortage of clinical personnel, and finally, improving the patient outcome and therefore the overall clinical value. As a closing remark, probably next evolutionary steps of robotic surgery is to provide more dexterity and manipulation capability while decreasing the patient trauma. Obviously, means a technical challenge for mechatronics itself and control. We want to provide adequate task-specific assistance by a mutual adaptation of surgeon and collaborative robotic systems, and provide also higher levels of autonomy based on novel perception and control capabilities. To all of these aspects, machine learning and artificial intelligence will contribute to solve different challenges here. Finally, so to do really this successful evolutionary step, robotic surgery demands a close and interdisciplinary partnership between not only research and clinicians, but also industry. And by this, I thank you very much. I'm looking forward to the panel.
Thank you very much. And just in experiencing that short introduction, I automatically have 2 or 3 questions that pop up that I'm champing at the bit to ask you. So that's great. Just again, feel free to the audience, feel free to enter your questions or remarks into the Q&A section, and we'll get to them in kind. Moving on, Professor Dr. Dirk Wilhelm, you are the implementer. You are the one actually moving this technology from theory to practice. Give a little bit more information about your background and kind of your day-to-day in your field.
Yes, I'd love to. Thank you, everybody, to this panel and the discussion. Thank you, Ben, for the introduction. And as already mentioned, for my main profession, I'm a surgeon with more than 25 years of training in different fields of surgery as a general surgeon, but also especially trained in laparoscopic surgery, and now since about 6 to 7 years, also in robotic surgery, which I do not only use as a surgeon myself, but also as a teacher to train others to use this new technology. So I have some experience in the application of robotics to treat patients, which is based on the clinical experience I have. On the other hand, and as it's also shown, I'm the lead of robotic research at the Klinikum Rechtstehisa, which is the clinical part of the Technical University of Munich. Here I lead as a clinical director a research group, which is involved in not only the development of new technologies and also robotic devices, but also on the implementation of those devices into clinical practice. You might have seen on the introduction slide that there's some label which is called surgeoneering, which we feel is highly important for the introduction of robotics, which simply means to transform the medical field so that technology is better usable, which we feel is very important when it comes to robotics, because robotics have different requirements. Most of them come from industry developments and do not really suit well into the clinical application and clinical environment. We think that we have to modify those robotic devices, but also we have to change how we think and how we perform medicine and surgery in special. And this is the label of surgeoneering. So it requires some active support by clinicians, and this involves also nurses and technical assistants, so that technology really brings a benefit in all areas and in all directions. In the research group I'm leading, we do, as mentioned, also develop robotic devices. This we do in close collaboration with different partners. On one hand, industrial partners, then partners from Technical University. I'm also the health sector lead of the Robotics Center at the Technical University, and with other research partners such as the DLR, with whom we do proceed the current developments in robotics from basic research until clinical application. And this means I have some maybe translational perspective on the integration of robotic devices from development to clinical application, which might be worthwhile for the later discussion. That's all from now.
Yeah, excellent. That's some good insight. And obviously for you, there's going to be some questions coming up as the person who's actually involved in showing the value of technology in regard to patient outcomes. And also the commercial side, we're going to ask some questions about that as well, because that is, when it's all said and done, it's all great to have, but if it doesn't make a commercial argument, it's tough to justify. Speaking of the commercial argument, we're going to move on here to Dr. Andreas Keibel. With KUKA, you are part of business. Give us a little bit about your background and what KUKA brings to the field of medicine. Just 1 second, if we could unmute you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Great. Go ahead, yeah.
Thanks for all participants in this round here. Yes, my name is Andreas, and I'm working for KUKA since 20 years. My educational background is electronic engineering with a fast focus on robotics. And since 12 years, I'm doing business development in the medical field of KUKA. And I think KUKA is a company many people know about. KUKA is doing industrial automation technology, not only the robots, but also complete manufacturing plants for car industry and also smaller industries. And since 20 years around, even more, maybe 23 years, we have customers in the medical field. And since some years, we have founded this internal group for medical robotics. And medical robotics is not new. So when you peek into the internet and look for medical robots, you quickly find a great amount of medical robots which are available right now. And this is a small collage here you can find. And these are real robots, not only a 2-axis positioning device, or some pneumatic positioner, but these are really true robots with serial or parallel kinematics with more than 4 joints. And so it's not new about talking about medical robotics, and much more robots are about to come. Yeah, so so for this reason, we have built our own scope and our own business unit, our own team, supporting our customers in the medical field. And to structure it a little bit more, we identified 6 use cases for our robots being used. It's first imaging, patient positioning, moving heavy equipment like treatment systems or imaging equipment, and align patient and equipment, moving smaller instruments, or even connect to the patient for rehabilitation and training. And yeah, looking a little bit into our customers, which are known and not under NDA so far, because we have a pipeline of products being developed with customers, and the customers don't want to go public with their idea. One thing is the Artis Fino from Siemens, an imaging system which can make 3D images right in the OR. Or it's the Accuray CyberKnife. This was our first customer with an X-ray treatment for moving an X-ray gun around the tumor. Or it's in the field of patient positioning in heavy ion and proton centers, where our robots are man-carrying devices, placing the patient in the beam to have a high accurate positioning so that only the tumor is hit by the particles. Or in rehabilitation in terms of hippotherapy, where the patient is put on a saddle which is moved by the robot, mimicking the hippotherapy, which turned out to improve patients' health after stroke. I have another rehabilitation robot. This is Life Science Robotics from Denmark. They will also join us on the MEDICA this year, demonstrating their new upper extremity rehabilitation robot, which is also using EMC feedback. Or it's Morpheus, a system from Empyrean Healthcare, which is an IoT applicator where you can shape the beam. Or it's Levita, a minimal invasive surgery company who has a specific magnetic guidance of their tools, which are already inside the body. Or it's Essential Robots. They have a generic approach for any kind of orthopedic surgery. Or it's in aesthetics, it's Artas, as Venus Concept is an Artas system for hair restoration, saying picking hair in the back head and reimplanting it in the forehead for more hair volume in the forehead. And yeah, what we experience in the future and what we are currently seeing is a paradigm shift for more intervention planning, so that the doctors can plan their intervention based on 3D imaging data from CT MR and do it not at home yet, but possibly in the home office in the future, and have a dedicated plan of what the intervention should look like on the patient, and then the next day are able to use this pre-interventional planning data right in the OR to shorten the OR times, to increase the efficiency and the patient outcome and the performance of the patient. Yeah, what can we look forward coming in the next years? I experience wherever I come that it's currently very difficult to keep the level of healthcare support at the moment. So it's not easy to even maintain the healthcare because of our demographic challenge we have, and not asking for elderly care or for the care. So we need support of robots and technology to even keep the level of support. And thinking further, I think it's a matter of the time that healthcare and insurance companies understand that they need to afford robots, because otherwise systems cannot fulfill its task. So I think the paradigm shift into more technology in the hospitals is overdue. And thinking about AI, we are all very surprised about what is possible with artificial intelligence. Robots can be the arms for the AI and support the doctors even more in their tasks and improves the outcome of the patients. And this raises the role of the doctors once again. With other words, we expect a further development in the medtech hype, including also robots. We are present on this year's MEDICA, and we have 4 exhibits. One thing is a demonstrator, robotic assisted navigation. It's a demonstrator made by KUKA. We have another demonstrator where we want to depict the immersive telemanipulation with force feedback and with different camera angles. We have done that before, but we improved this demonstrator. We have, I just said it, life science robotics on the booth, and Flux Robotics, who have a magnetic guided catheter robot to be even more efficient with a robot to place the catheter at the position where it should go. Yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thanks for that overview. It's interesting. You mentioned the problems we're facing in the delivery of medicine and care, and I find it interesting because people have been talking about this for a good decade now. This demographic bulge, and despite knowing about it, we are facing real problems, and we were globally, I would say, even completely unprepared. So I think it's a great opportunity to involve technology to solve these problems, make up for lost time in lost preparation time. Mr. Klodmann, coming back to you, you are kind of the gatekeeper, I would imagine, in many respects, between people with ideas, technology, the development of those, and then passing that through to possible solutions. How do you evaluate ideas? Who brings ideas to the table, and how do you make decisions about what could potentially seem feasible, deserves further research, or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, so I guess this interdisciplinary exchange is quite important. So collaborating with clinicians, going to the hospital, visiting real surgeries is very inspiring. Going to also surgical congresses in the different surgical domains. This is something what I was experiencing quite, let's say, valuable from inspiration point of view, and then also going obviously to the research community and let's say getting also there connected and looking also what industry does. Everything, let's say, there are different puzzle pieces, and finally, let's say, just as creativity is working, some puzzle pieces fit together, and then you come up with a new idea. And to evaluate such new ideas, it's again going back to the clinicians and discussing these ideas, getting feedback whether it really hits a clinical need, and then deriving technical requirements and going through the development. Let's say, first of all, without, let's say, doing a real business development and creating a business case out of it, because this is what research is about, right? And yeah, then let's say after this development phase, which is also yeah, accompanied by clinicians and maybe even interested industrial partners, in terms of the MIRO Innovation Lab, we obviously also evaluate them in preclinical studies used or based on yeah, surgical phantoms, so from silicon or plastics, and evaluating these systems which evolve.
So you really are looking at the actual clinical application in any new technology that comes in. What could this be used for? It's not so much, this looks interesting, let's see how it could be used. Much more focused on an actual use case.
Yeah, I think it also happens in both ways, but I think the most success and efficient development can be performed if you look at the real procedure, at the application, what are the clinical needs, and then map novel technologies which are out there towards this. For example, you know about a certain problem and you find out there are new fiber optical sensors in case, or just as an example, you could solve now this problem with these sensors. Then let's say you connect, let's say, from the perspective of the clinical problem, new technologies towards it. And
thanks. That makes sense. That's very clear. Professor Dr. Dirk Wilhelm, there's an issue in medicine, of course. I believe it's commonly known as the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. When I think about new technologies, especially robotic surgery, let me put it in the field of the automobile industry. Tesla, there are claims made that an autopilot in Tesla on the macro is safer than individual drivers. But still, when this system fails, it's big news. The system itself is really put on trial for any mistake, even though the macro is made safer. How do you as a practitioner deal with that, even possibly an ethical question of, we feel this technology is superior, but there are going to be some drawbacks. There will be mistakes made. How do you navigate that dilemma?
It's actually a very good question, and something we discuss in the medical community quite often. You mentioned the Hippocratic Oath, which is not only about do no harm to patients, but also to provide the best treatment possible to them. And this means that whatever we could apply to a patient must be used if it's superior to something else. And coming to robotics, as soon as we prove that it's superior, and you mentioned the field of autonomous driving, where we also did prove that it's superior, at least in given scenarios, then we have to think about applying those technologies to humans, although we still are responsible for the patients, and still we have to supervise this. And this is something that we have to do step by step. We have to introduce new technologies at first on a very low level to ensure that the patient is not harmed by the technology. And if we learn and see that it's reliable, then we have to step up. The problem that you mentioned is not only about reliability, but also who is responsible if a failure occurs. And this is something
Absolutely.
which, if a machine is produced by a company, is becoming critical. No one expects a surgeon to be 100% perfect or precise, but everybody expects from a machine to be that accurate and precise. And this is the problem, the issue that we see. And as already mentioned, it's something which is statistical. And the values or the percentages which we were talking about is less than 1%, which machine might be better or worse than a human being. And for this requires a huge amount of patients to be treated to really prove about one thing being better or worse. Something that we currently see with robotic devices, which still are controlled by humans, but we see that they have some advantages, but we can't prove it because the difference between the human treatment and the robotic guided or transferred treatment is very, very low. It's something which needs to be answered by ethical experts, by clinicians, but also with the patients. They also have to be taken into account and introduced to this discussion, whether they choose to be operated by an autonomous machine or by a surgeon to control this machine. But at the end, as I mentioned at the intro of this section, we have to provide the best treatment option to patients. And if one day this will be an autonomous machine, then we have to go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. So it's basically, it's a new technology, just like any in the past. It needs to be proven efficacious and an improvement to standard of care previously without. Dr. Andreas Keibel, when you are interacting with new technology, new potential customers that come to you with a use case, a potential need, which I hope some in the audience today would kind of be ruminating about, considering, possibly also existing customers with new ideas as well. How should they be prepared? What do they need to know? What do they need to have already on the table to best interact with you to make everybody's time the most valuable to drive innovation forward?
Customers who approach us, to be honest, they have a good, I think in all of the cases, they have a good idea what they would like to use the robot for. And then it is a matter of understanding if this is possible. And we learn a lot from this talking with the customers, even though that we have an educated team of around 30 people working specifically for the medical field with doctors, medical informatics, PhDs, and medical technology engineers. So the entry level to understand what the customer wants is very high at KUKA, but still we learn about their use cases. And then it's a matter of a give and take and a mutual understanding what the customer would like to achieve. We will not say that some customer is not prepared enough. So it's always a matter of the interaction. And we of course want we will want the customer to solve the problem. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to just get hung up on keywords here, but artificial intelligence is now, since the beginning of the year, with let's just say ChatGPT. Everybody's tried it out now. They see kind of in a day-to-day for them on a personal level where this can go, how useful it can be. So it's on the front of everybody's mind. I think there are some confusions about what actually AI is, and then you take it to the level of the medical field. Is it an algorithm? Is it programming? Or is it actual AI? Mr. Klodmann, what do you, first of all, where is the state of AI within medical robotics, and especially in the OR? What is the interaction between man and machine and completely autonomous systems now? And where do you see them going and being possible in the future?
Okay, this was a complex question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, apologies in advance.
Of course. So I guess, yeah, on the one hand, artificial intelligence can, or particularly machine learning algorithms, can be applied to many different technological areas. So if we are talking about mechatronics, so we want to build more slender instruments, for example, by means of continuum mechanisms. So how to actually design these mechanisms and how to model them, how to control them. Here we could apply machine learning algorithms. If we considering also, how could we support the surgeon, for example, when he's doing really delicate tasks, we could apply learning from demonstration algorithms using kinematics data, using vision data, using interaction dynamics data, let's say to provide him some kind of assistance. I guess what's and last but not least, and not to call out every domain, is perception. So this is actually a crucial step which we need to go further towards autonomy. So perception in terms of imaging, this is obvious, I guess. So if you're talking about different perception sensors like stereo endoscopes, mono endoscopes, or ultrasound devices, here can machine learning really help to understand and interpret these images and to provide this information back to some, let's say, autonomy framework, which is taking at least some decisions, or let's say configures itself based on this information. And so therefore, I guess there's really a very strong aspect of artificial intelligence in the perception. And talking about autonomy, honestly saying, not the robots which are out there are mostly not, or let's say at a low level of autonomy still, because of the lack of perception and maybe also manipulation capability. So the most autonomous system is maybe the CyberKnife system Dr. Keibel mentioned, which is using this X-ray, or let's say a radiation gun to treat a tumor. But this is a really structured environment. You have even the OR table, which is compensating for motion, and you have also the particular perception aids there. But so in laparoscopy, for example, let's say Nowadays, all these systems are directly telemanipulated. So basically, you have a virtual gearbox, you have some hand-eye coordination restoration, you have some ergonomics back, but basically the instruments do what the surgeon is doing. What we need to go for is here the, let's say, yeah, like the driver assistance system. So like the lane assist or similar, or let's say some distance assists, which we could maybe apply in the near future. But here we are way not, let's say, in higher levels of autonomy.
Mm-hmm. Professor Dr. Wilhelm, before I forget, just something pops up in my head. We just heard that perception is a place for AI. Imaging, it's already really coming into full use as far as imaging analysis and diagnosis from those images. You as a surgeon have specific abilities in the operating room. Yes, imaging, your eyes and perception is one of those. Tactile response, just the feeling of you with your instruments on a patient. What aspects of those are already well supported or well utilized by robotics, and which aspects need to be much further developed in order to allow, I don't want to say a robot to replace you, but in order to allow a robot to enhance your professionalism in the operating room?
It depends on which kind of robotics we're talking about. As long as we talk about surgical robotics, then currently vision is mostly the sense which is used and utilized by robotic systems. So we can feel this sense, or we can use this sense for our surgeries. Some robotic devices have tactile feedback, providing some sense of forces, which we can use for guiding our robotic systems. But that's all. So we don't hear with robotic devices, we don't smell or whatever, which might not be that relevant. We have also learned that the reduction of senses could be overcome by improving some of these senses in reverse. So for example, talking about surgical robotics, we could overcome the loss of tactile feedback by a better visualization of the surgical field. So senses are reduced to a few only, but this is mainly when it comes to surgical robotics, which, as mentioned before, are currently completely controlled or mostly controlled by human beings, by surgeons. Talking about alternative robotic devices, then this field becomes much more important. And Dr. Keibel has mentioned before, we have a huge problem in the healthcare system. We have shortage of personnel, we have difficulties to treat our patients, and we need robotics in the future. This is absolutely true, and I agree with Dr. Keibel in this regard. But this would require to have autonomy. Without autonomy, we can't replace human beings, or we can support them in a way that we spare people, staff, so to overcome the shortage. And in this regard, we will use all senses, which is seeing, feeling, hearing, whatever, to provide a basis to then execute tasks, or to have machines that really manipulate or interact with human beings or the environment. And as it comes to this field, at least in research, all senses are currently used, and we have, for example, robotic circulating nurses or scrub nurses, which we currently develop our research institute, which combine different senses to provide a knowledge base, or a knowledge which allows to execute one or the other task. Otherwise, it won't be possible. And this is also when it comes to artificial intelligence, which needs to be noted. Those algorithms which we have trained so far, they do not provide an accuracy of 100%. They provide accuracies around 95%, some of them 96 or 7. But when it comes to patient treatment, or to navigate and to operate in a medical environment, we must have almost 100%. And this only will be feasible by the combination of different sensors, of different algorithms, by a more wider understanding of artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly,
Sting?
maybe it's good to just call me Dirk, then we will save some time. Not always need to tell me like whatever. Yeah. So I'm Dirk.
Yeah.
To
Okay.
make it easier.
Just staying with you for a second, where are robots most efficacious at the moment, possibly within your exact specialty, what your most common procedures, or outside of those? And then 10, 15 years down the road, where do you see them in the operating theater being most implemented? And then just possibly a little icing on the cake, what are some potential theoretical procedures that are currently not possible that you think this is a dream of mine, this might be possible at some point through robotics, if there is such a thing?
When it comes to possibility, I would believe that almost everything is possible, and we can go way beyond what currently humans can do, because robotic devices have huge chances for miniaturization, for providing forces human can't provide. So I would assume that on the long run, with the rise of artificial intelligence and the development of robotic devices, we can replace, if necessary, almost everything which is currently done by humans. The question is whether we would like to replace it. And I know that one day artificial intelligence will be emotional, will be ethical. There's a very good knowledge in this regard. However, still I believe that humans have some talents and some superior knowledges which we should keep for treating our patients. So emotional things, personal interaction to humans, care, this is something which we could replace by robotic devices, but which I would love to keep on the human side. When you talk about what will be replaced by robotic devices, I would think that this will not be a replacement that one position or one application humans we are doing currently will be completely replaced, but I think of having something of a collaboration so that we separate a distinct task into different subtasks. One of these will be done by robotic devices, whereas others will still be in hand of humans. So it will be kind of a collaboration. And coming back to the research we are currently undertaking, when you have, for example, a circulating nurse, this is a position or a work which is assisting surgeons while operating, provision of sterile goods, provision of instruments which you don't have on the table, but you require whatever. Here we learned that the transport of devices, this is something that could be easily taken over by robotic device, but the handling of a sterile good to the surgical team is extremely complex for a robotic device and easily to be done by a human, meaning we have to share tasks between robotic devices and humans, and we have to make it that at the end everybody is happy and our talents, the human talents, are provided better to the environment, to the patients, as it's currently the fact. So it will be some collaboration, not a replacement, but hand in hand between robotic devices and human beings.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. It's very easy to really focus on the point of the spear, so to speak, in the surgery, whether it be an endoscopy or otherwise. But it really is the supporting role of robotics as well that has to be kept in mind. So thanks for that. Dr. Keibel, to you, as somebody who's responsible for actually providing truly the nuts and bolts of the technology, what do you see as being possible? And just as importantly, I don't want to put too much of a negative spin on it, but what are the limitations currently, and what limitations will continue down the road in the intermediate future?
Yeah. I'm optimist and I'm engineer. Where is it? Yeah. I think I would like to talk about the possibilities. The limits, if there's limits, then the engineer instantly starts finding out
Yeah,
to to move the limit away. Yes,
that's your job.
talking
Exactly.
about
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. I find this is a very, very interesting topic. Also in the robotics, yeah, a robotic arm should behave deterministic. Yeah, this is where we are coming from. The car assembly manufacturer, they want the pass on this part and is very precisely, and so we need to have deterministic machines. Yeah, but this is a simple task to have a precision line. When it comes to diagnostics in the medical field, where you have to have a tumor board with many oncologists to decide about what's up with the patient, then AI can help. This is what we have learned from our customers when it's about having a very, very big mind about all that has been in the past. And to look up similar cases, nobody can have all this data in the mind. And this is where AI comes in, and also in law, to have cases where which have been similar before. Nobody can have all this in his mind. And AI can also help in the robotics field to compare the current case with cases which have been already there, and how has the robot behaved in this case to have the best output. I think the limitation, the problem is to bring this non-deterministic AI to the deterministic robot from whom everybody expects to behave deterministic. So maybe we need a kind of probationary period. Probationary, so you have to have a time to prove yourself if you're good enough for the AI. Yeah, when you have an untrained AI, it makes mistakes on, and after the time it becomes better and better. And finally, the results are astonishing. And you would like to use it instantly because the results are so great using ChatGPT or DeepL or something like that. But you'd never know if it brings out an error which is so bad for the patient in the future that you have to rate the quality of the output. But I think we will not come around it to have AIs who are proved to have a certain outcome and a certain risk, so that yeah, like every machine can fail, maybe the AI can also fail for a certain yeah, percentage. Yeah. And I think bringing this deterministic machines together with the AI, this is the challenge. We see self-driving cars, yeah, the autopilot from Musk. He was saying it will work in 2017, but it's still not working. So I think this is a challenge. Yeah, and in bringing the robots to the customers into every hospital, the price is always a challenge, and the argumentation to reimburse this. Yeah, this is from our side. It is a business risk to invest into new robots and finding customers in the medical field. Yeah. And the challenge for us is that we have the demographic challenge. So we have less insurance payers who have to pay for more people. The baby boomers will become old soon, and we have to have money for technology. Yeah. Yeah, and to argue the use case for the robots who support the doctors, yes, and the AI supporting the robots and the doctors.
Well, my baby boomer parents will be very happy to hear that they're not old yet, but they will be old soon. I'll let them know. I think we're there yet, and we're already experiencing that. Mr. Julian Klodmann, to you, as we've established here, you really are the gatekeeper in many respects and bridge builder. One of I think the potentially sexiest aspects of robotics is remote surgery at some point. What needs to happen in order to allow this? Possibly, that we have in the surgical field, a truly global possibility to connect the best surgeons with the most troublesome cases.
So I guess what's yeah, currently again, let's say yeah, coming up in the community and also in industry is that by exploiting these new, let's say, networks like 5G or maybe even 6G in the midterm, will allow some kind of mentoring. So to have remotely, let's say, experts looking over the current procedural step some surgeon is currently suffering from. He's just remotely, or let's say, calling the remote expert, and he's giving some advices. And so I cannot really imagine that a complex, for example, laparoscopic procedure will be fully tele-manipulated globally. But there are smaller, let's say, aspects like doing a ultrasound scan by a remote expert who best knows how to actually do the scan to interpret the images. Or maybe a smaller task like not sure now, but in general, I guess it's so the mentoring aspect, which is something which will come up very soon.
Mm-hmm. Professor Dr. Dirk Wilhelm, do you see it the same way? Do you see, if not even in our lifetime, then in generations in the future, that we will have real-time remote surgeries?
We already have it. I mean, what we do with the systems we currently use, this is kind of remote surgery, although the distance between the surgeon and the machine is only a few meters. I am honestly not a friend of the vision that you are like imagination, you might talk about kinds of this operation Lindbergh, where Professor Marisco did a cholecystectomy, a robotic cholecystectomy on a patient in New York while sitting on a console in France. So this long distance surgery for me doesn't make really sense for two instances. The one thing is that we currently still have very well-trained surgeons on one hand, and the other thing is surgery is not only about doing a surgery. It's also about knowing the patient prior to surgery, talking to the patient. Any patient requires an individual treatment, which is not only based on a disease or some anatomy, but also depends on the understanding and the belief and the wishes of a patient. So it's much more than only doing the surgery. And also the postoperative care is something which I believe is very important for the long-term outcome. To reduce this, to cut this only to a procedure, is nothing which makes sense to me from a medical perspective. In this regard, providing remote surgery is something that could be interesting in very urban areas where we don't have access to surgeons, or in critical areas like in war scenarios where the access of surgeons to the patients is too dangerous, too critical. On the other hand, I really believe in remote surgery, but within one hospital. Thinking of a surgeon which is sitting on one console while jumping from one to the other patient, mediated by different robotic devices. So this is an in-house remote surgery, which for me absolutely makes sense for different perspectives, not only to have one very well-trained surgeon operating on many patients in a very short or in a very defined space, but also for hygienic aspects, for economic and also climatic aspects, because surgeons currently have to scrub in, they have to prepare for the surgeon, things we can avoid when separating the surgeon more from the patient, although he must still, to my understanding, stay within the hospital to know the patient, to talk to him prior to surgery, to have this consent of the patient to be operated. You mentioned the Hippocratic Oath. This is something that I believe is something that has to be given personally to the surgeon operating. And for this regard, I believe in robotic remote surgery, but not on long distances, but within a hospital.
That's very clear, well understood. Thank you very much for that. We have quickly consumed our time here. As you can hear, there's a million different directions we could take this, whether it be technology, ethics, outcomes, etc. Just really a fascinating conversation. due to the technology itself and its implications. Mr. Julian Klodmann, Professor Dr. Dirk Wilhelm, and Dr. Andreas Keibel, thank you, all three of you, for joining us and for providing us your insights and discussion topics. It's been a real pleasure. To all of you that have attended, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions. I hope we got to many of them. We have our next MEDICA Deep Dive discussion on September 21st. At the same time, it is dealing with artificial intelligence, this time in diagnostic and in the pharmaceutical development process. If you are planning on attending the MEDICA in Düsseldorf, we'll see you there from the 13th till the 16th of November. And if you're still just considering it, please do attend, come and find us, have a discussion. It's truly a remarkable event, and we look forward to welcoming you to Düsseldorf in November. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panel, and that's all for now. Thank you very much.